Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2022 Honda Ridgeline, we're going to be showing you how to install the REDARC custom fit adapter harness. Before we do that though, let's just check this out and make sure it's going to work for you. So right off the bat, what REDARC has done is made a plug and play type harness for their trailer brake controllers. So this is going to work with the REDARC Tow-Pro Liberty, which is what we have installed on our Honda here today. It'll plug in to this portion there. And then this will plug into your factory connector, which is located behind this panel. You can see it from the bottom, and we'll show you that during the installation. You know, the vast majority of not only the Ridgeline, but some of the other Hondas, because this does fit a couple other makes, will have that connector. And if you do, definitely a no-brainer to utilize something like this because it makes everything plug and play. With that said, this is also going to work with the REDARC Tow-Pro Elite Trailer Brake Controller. So regardless on which one you end up going with, this will get the job done. The harness is going to be plenty long, so you'll pretty much be able to mount your trailer brake controller anywhere you want under the dash, within reason, for sure. So definitely no concerns there. Now, bear in mind that this is going to work with the vehicles that have that factory tow package. All right, if yours does not come equipped with that, then you're gonna have to do something a little bit different to get the brake controller installed. You would need a 4-way flat wiring harness, and then to build off of that, you could use the etrailer.com universal brake controller install kit. And then in that case, you'd want to use REDARC's universal type harness, which is this here. So this would plug into the brake controller, and then you just have bare wires, which you'd hook to the eTrailer brake controller install kit. So definitely check that out. Real quick way to tell, look at the back of your Honda. If you have the factory 7-way there, chances are really good you got the factory tow package, but still not a bad idea to take a peek under the dash and see if that connector's there. If it is, you're in great shape. You can use this adapter. And the vast majority of these Ridgelines that at least I've seen will be set up this way. So, you know, if yours is indeed set up like this, makes 100% sense to use the adapter, because why not? You know, it's custom fit, plug and play, and really simplifies the whole entire installation process. Now, with that said, as far as getting this installed, right, you just seen half of it. You plug one end in, plug the other end in. But being that if you're gonna be installing this, you're gonna be installing the whole brake controller too. So what we're gonna do is show you everything. How to get this plugged in, where to find the connector, and you know, even run through and show the brake controller, because I'm sure it'll be useful if you're focusing on this. You're gonna have to do the brake controller next. So why don't we go ahead and get started on that now. To begin our installation, we're gonna be here in the front seat of our Ridgeline, and what we're gonna do is remove this side panel and then this front panel. Now, you don't absolutely have to do this, but it is going to make things much easier to get to our connector plug and be able to mount up our knob and everything else. So to me, it's worthwhile spending a few minutes doing this, but we're going to do the side one first. And these just are snapped into place pretty much. So you can take a trim tool and just kind of work your way around it here. To get these snaps released. And usually once you get one or two, they all kind of seem to come out much easier. So that's kind of what was holding it in place there. And then we'll set that to the side. And the same is going to hold true for this panel as far as what I can tell so far. Work our way around and You know, if it feels like we're getting hung up, I'll take a look under there and see what we need to do. I just came right off here. And I'm just going to unplug these connectors just so we can move our panel out of the way. Looks like we got a handful of them. With all of them, there's just a little tab in the center. You just push down on it and pull back on the plug. And all these have different style ends on them, so when we go to put it back together, it's pretty straightforward. So in our case, over here, we had something plugged into it, and to release it, you know, you can just kind of lightly pry up on these tabs. The whole dash section here is released, and we'll set it off to the side for now. With the dash out of the way, that gives us super easy access to the connector plug here. So tucked right up in here, this is a factory connector that we're going to be using to operate our brake controller. Since there's more or less two different versions available for this Redarc, I figured I'd touch base on both of them. What I would recommend doing is getting the brake controller that doesn't come with the universal harness and then picking up this custom fit harness separately. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Because what this will allow us to do, this end will match the Honda connector, so we can just plug right into that. And then this end will plug into our brake controller. But a lot of times, Honda and the Ridgelines will give you this universal harness, right? So this would plug in the factory connector, and then you'll just have to make connections here. So if you happen to get the kit that comes with the brake controller and this universal harness, that'll still work. You'll just have to connect these together. And so if that's a setup that you're using, these wires would go to, and these harnesses might be a little different, you know, check the instructions or do what you need to do. But on ours, what we would do, if you're setting it up this way, is the factory black wire on our harness, that's going to be ground. And so that would get connected to the white wire from our Redarc harness. And I'll get them out of the way here. And then the blue wire here on the harness, it's a little bit darker blue, a little bit thicker wire. That's battery power on our factory harness. So you would connect that to the black wire from our Redarc harness. And then as far as this thin kind of sky blue, light blue factory wire, that's going to be our stoplight signal, brake signal. So you would connect that to the red wire from our Redarc harness. And then the factory brown wire, this would be the output to the trailer brakes, so you'd connect that to the thick blue wire from our Redarc harness. With all that said though, since we are going to be utilizing the custom fit harness, all we're going to have to do is plug that right in like so. We'll let that hang for a minute, and now we can find a spot to mount up the actual brake controller. So we'll be working underneath the dash somewhere. I'll pick out a spot and show you what I came up with. Here's what I came up with. Under the dash, there's a bolt, a factory bolt that we can utilize to mount this. But I just wanted to show you the bracket that I'm using here. So this is just a 2.5 inch by 2.5 inch bracket. You know, a lot of times you can just buy these from the hardware store. That's where this one came from. Or if you got a piece of metal at home, you can make your own. You can mount these in different orientations as well. You know, you just want to make sure that it's actually going to be secured. You just don't want to zip tie this to a bundle of wire or something. So if you don't feel like bothering with that, if you can find another spot, that's awesome. But just wanted to show you what I had going on here before I put it under the dash. So I just secured it to the bracket. I got a couple of screws and flat washers and split lock washers to attach it. So now I'll get this installed under the dash there and show you how it turned out. Here's how I ended mounting this up. So right under the steering column, there's a little bracket holding on some wiring. And I just removed that bolt there. It's an 8mm head. Pulled the bolt out, slid our bracket on top of it, and tightened everything back down. I think it turned out pretty good. We can plug this end into the controller now. So it'll only go in one way. And whenever you're setting up wiring and everything, just make sure when you route it, you're not going to be around any moving parts. You know, make sure you clear your e-brake and your steering column and things of that nature. Now what we need to do is figure out where we want to mount up our switch and knob. So really you can put this in a ton of different spots as long as you have the room, you know, behind the dash and everything to have all this stuff mounted up. I'm choosing to go right here below our switches already. I think it'll be a good spot. Sometimes you'll have, you know, depending on what options and stuff you have, sometimes one of these panels will be blank. You could always utilize one of those. I've done in the past. And Redarc actually has these universal mounting panels, and just kind of eyeballing it, it looks really close, like you might be able to use it. You know, it's hard to say with 100% certainty if this will pop right in there, but that is always something you could potentially think about. But with that said, since we're going right to our dash, they give you this ring here, and I like to use it as a template. So I just, you know, figure out where I want to mount it, color it in. You do want the nipple there to be up in the 12 o'clock position. And once we get this drilled, you don't absolutely have to install this into the dash. We may or may not. The dash is kind of thick, so we might have to do away with this, but at the very least, use it as a template, and then we can drill out the holes to the size listed in the instructions. With that hole drilled, I will say it's not uncommon to have to open it up just a little bit bigger. You know, you can take your drill bit and kind of waller it out some. Tends to be the trend. And then a lot of times you have little burrs on the plastic. I'll come back with a razor blade and just kind of cut them clean. But we'll take our switch, line that up, and it looks like we can use this. So we'll push that into place. And then you have this nut that will thread on, and be careful when you're doing this. You know, make sure it's starting straight, because these are pretty easy to cross thread. Definitely just want to start it by hand. You know, just make sure everything stays lined up while you're you're threading this in. So we're looking pretty good there. Then you can take a 12mm socket and just by hand, again, just tighten it up a little bit until it's snug. The knob, you want to turn that all the way counterclockwise as far as it'll go. And you take the button here and you want to take where it says 0 and line that up with the nipple there that's pointing up. And then this just pushes into place. You can grab the other cable now, and on the back of the switch we can plug one of these ends in. You can use either one. I'm going to use this 90-degree one because just looking at the port on our brake controller that we have mounted under the dash, it makes more sense as far as routing to plug the straight end into that side. On this one, I mean, it's wide open, so it don't really matter here, but this will just plug right into place. We'll take our panel now, got all the electronics and everything plugged back in, and we'll just reinstall this the opposite way that we removed it. With the panels all re-secured, we only had one more wire left that we needed to plug in. And it was the other end of this wiring. And since it's kind of tricky to see under there, I happen to have another one of these on hand just so I can show you. But really simple, same exact way that we plugged into the back of the switch. We'll take that end, that just directly plugs into the brake controller. At this point, once everything's plugged in and everything, we're going to make sure everything's working and we can calibrate it, so on and so forth. And so you'd want to plug into your trailer. I'm just plugged into a test box, which simulates a trailer, since we're inside here. And the brake controller lit up, has power. If yours does not, sometimes there will be a fuse that you have to put in the vehicle. Just check your owner's manual and look for anything related to trailer brake controller fuse. Check it, put the fuse in if it's missing. Ours works fine, so we don't have to worry about it. But we have a green light that flashes to blue, and that means the controller needs to be calibrated, which more or less it's really simple. You don't even have to be hooked up to your trailer, but you just drive like you normally would and come to complete stops, and after usually takes 6 or 10 stops, generally speaking, the light will go from that flashing color to a solid color. All right, and so when that happens, you know it's calibrated. Now with that said, if you're not hooked up to your trailer or anything, you're not going to see the light until you're plugged into it. So think about that. You know, if you're not hooked up, make more than enough stops and you should be in good shape there. So I'll go ahead, take this for a spin, get it calibrated, and then we can completely test it out. After driving it around for a minute, our light went to solid blue, letting us know that the trailer brake controller is calibrated and ready to be used. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the REDARC custom fit adapter harness on our 2022 Honda Ridgeline.